Alright, welcome back to the Orca Boat Shop. My name is Rod and this is episode 19 in building Elfyn, and we're going to be working on the spars. I'm working outside today. It's got some great weather. Temperature's probably around 22-23 degrees Celsius, and I needed a space, but we do get a lot of traffic noise from the roads nearby, so just editing out the noise and voiceover on top of this. So the first thing I'm doing here is I'm cutting all of my pieces of lumber to length on the main mast, the boom, and the yard. Now you might see in this angle here that the mast itself, the piece of lumber's got a bit of a wow in it. But I do have some extra material. This is a 4x4 or 3.5, and the mast only needs to be 2 5/8 at its widest. So I'm using a string line, I'm finding the widest part, making some marks, and then I'm going to work away from center on straightening this piece of lumber out. With the center line marked, I can then mark away from center to get all of the dimensions required on the mast to straighten it out. Plan is to shave off as little as possible on the two ends that had the least amount of material required, as for versus the center of the beam, the center of the spar, that would require a little bit more. Once I have that edge pretty straight, I'm able to then run it through my table saw. Now the table saw blade does not go high enough, so I did have to make 2 passes. It was a bit of a slow go going through, but did manage to get a pretty straight edge. With one side on all of these spar pieces pretty well trued up, I'm able to run them all through the thickness planer to get all of the pieces down to the maximum thickness dimension of all sides. It is now time to begin building the sailing components, mainly the mast, boom, and yard. So in this instance, I'm going to go metric on y'all, even though I don't use it much, but dividing things in half and quarters is so much easier in metric. I'm going to start off with the small yard, and according to plans, full thickness in the center, and a great portion of it is 1 5/8 or 42 mils. I need to draw a line down the center, so easy enough, we go with 21. Now I will draw this down the center of 2 sides, and then we measure out from center. Now because I've drawn from one side there, I'll draw from the same side on the opposite. Alright, now that I have my center line drawn down from the same side on both sides, it's now time to divide this up into 4 sections. That's what the plans call for. It is 198 centimeters long, and that divided by 4 is 49.5, so that's what we're going to go with. 49.5, 99, and we'll go 49.5 from the opposite end, because I can't do the math on the third one, where we have 49.5 or 495 mils, and that section in there is 49.5. Square across, and I've already done the other side. Alright, so through these 2 sections here, we have full thickness, but the ends will taper down to slightly less. So I've marked those off by dividing half the thickness and marking away from center. So it's full thickness of 5/8 through this section and second section, although it does taper down just ever so slightly. I think if I draw a line through these to here, we get the taper towards the other end. Repeat that process for the other side. Alright, let the noise begin. We have very little to shave off on the butt end here. I'll just take a couple of passes. Actually, I would like to mark approximately where this starts here, just so I don't go too much past it. Alright, now that I shaved that, I've got to mark the other two sides exactly the same and do that taper. Alright, it's time to work on the big boy, the mast. Now I already trued this all up as shown previously in the video, and so now I can find the distances. We're going to go again in the millimeters. And on the big boy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, we're going to have to measure on here because the mast is not divided into equal sections. They're equal sections and whatever is left over down there. So in mils, these are 8.2 centimeters, 82 mils. Are they all equal? Yes, 82 mils times 8. 65.5 centimeters. We'll start with that and see how we go. $13.3. Is that what it is? $13.3 exactly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. Plus a bit. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. Although my final section looks a little small. This last section here should be 32 centimeters. Well, I am trying to sort out the math on this, and then I've come to the realization that there's an error in here, because this mast in scale is 53 centimeters and the scale is 8:1. 53 centimeters times 8 equals 424 centimeters, and yet it says that it is 4.04 or 404. So this measurement in here is over by 24 centimeters, which is about 8 inches. Now I've already cut my mast at 13.3 or 4.04 meters. So when I scale off these, which is a little over 8. Let's go standard. Each one of these is 3.25, 3.25. Let's do that. So you go 3.25 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections equals 19.5 times 8 equals 156 inches. This section down here, the lower portion on the mast step area, is 1.5 times 8 is 12 inches, so we'll add that, equals 168 inches. If I divide 168 inches by 12, I get 14 feet, not 13.3. So almost 9 inches under that measurement. So we're not going to go with scale on this. I am going to divide the mast into, well, I don't know, what, 6 equal sections, leaving maybe 6 or 8 inches on the bottom. So I wouldn't say there's an error in the scale of the drawing, because this all worked out very well. I would suggest that where it's, well, I mean, it says 13.3 in inches and 404. Could say 424, 4.24 meters, which is 424 centimeters. What to do, what to do? I can't make my mast any longer. It's already cut. Alright, so I've arbitrarily decided that the small taper on the bottom, rather than 12 inches, it will be 8. So that's it. Hey, I'm going to write this down. 8. Then, what is left? So 151 divided by 6 sections in inches. 151 divided by 6 section equals 25.1. That doesn't make sense. Let's come up with an even number here. What if I go 152 by 6? 152 divided by 6 equals 25.25. 150 divided by 6 equals 25 inches. So then we're going to go 9 inches from the bottom here, leaving me 150 divided by 6 is 25 inches. So my taper for the mast step sitting into the partner, or sorry, through the partner and into the mast step, will start to taper there down to the final diameter at the bottom. So 25 inches makes a reasonable mathematical number to figure out. 100, where we go, 125, should take me to 150. Bang on. Alright, so that's a pretty simple number to remember. Alright, I've got my center line running down and the cross sections marked. So I'm just setting my gauge, and we are very close. So I have to mark the other side at these lines on center. I'm not going to draw the line all the way down. I don't think that's necessary. At the butt end, around at the butt end, we are 44 mils. So 44, 22 either side of center. I'll undo it. Just mark the other side as well. Working my way up the mast. 67, where the taper starts. 67, well, 60, we'll go 66, 33 either side of center. Yeah, we're making a bit of noise. Now that I have all of the tapers planed on the mast, the boom, the yard, I then marked out with my trusty little spar marking gauge here. I have shown this in other videos. I'm not going to really talk about it all that much now, or you can just look it up for yourself using Pythagoras's theory and calculations on how to mark the edges of a spar or a square to make it round. So I've done that on all 4 sides on the mast, and now it's time to knock the corners off to the lines that I've drawn. Now one could make a little jig to set up in your blocks or in your sawhorses, but these convenient little DeWalt's have the V cut into there, so it sits nicely. It will wobble around a bit, so I can just clamp it down in a couple sections and move my clamps to another area when the time comes that I need to plane that area. Back to more shavings and noise. Now that I've planed 4 corners down flat, I've turned the 4-sided piece of lumber into a 8-sided piece of lumber, and relatively equal sides using the marking gauge. Now we can mark again if we want and knock off these corners, but right now I do believe it's time for lunch. With the 3 pieces down to 8 sides, it's now to knock off the corners to make it 16 sides, and I am going to do this with the power planer. It's going to just be by eye as far as how far to take it, and if I even roll the power plane around a little bit, I can knock off what I need, and the rest will be done by hand plane and sandpaper. So a little trick here is mark it off, maybe with a felt pen, whatever, and then you can see what's left and what you've taken off. We're trying to get the same dimensions on all 16 sides, approximately. And another little trick to make sure you're not just planing the same corner over and over again is to number the sides. So we have 1, 2, 3. Now we have 4 there, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And in the middle there, where I've already planed, is like 3.5. Otherwise I could end up just cutting the same corner and a corner and a corner. And then to knock off the last little bit of corners, I'm just going to take my apron plane here and just kind of roll it around. Shaping the mast, boom and yard, that probably took me about 3-4 hours to do all 3 pieces, making the 4 to 8 to 16 sides. Now it's time to get on to sanding this, and that's going to be in the next episode, because first I need to build myself a nice little sanding drum, custom kind of sanding drum for sanding spars. But right now I got a heck of a mess to clean up here, so we'll see you next time.